I'm Rory Green from XR Today, bringing you the latest in news and conversation from the extended reality space. Joining me today is Jake Steineman, the head of community at Spatial. Welcome and thank you for joining me today, mate.
Hey, Rory. Thanks for having me. My name is Tony Bevilacqua. I'm the founder and CEO of Cognitive3D, and we do 3D analytics for virtual, augmented, and mixed reality.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. So maybe start off by introducing Cognitive3D, as well as the analytics that you are tracking and why are you helping your clients track these analytics?
Yeah, for sure. So we've been at this for quite a while. I'm actually a second-time founder. Ran a company prior to this in kind of the mobile category. And through that experience, got really early exposure to what was going on the market with kind of DK2 back in the early days. And realized that there's a real opportunity, a greenfield opportunity, to build metrics in a new wave to address the needs of what was going on in the XR space. And so founded the company in late 2015, first product into market 2016, focused on kind of the spatial analytics category. So this is like kind of 3D representations of what's going on. We didn't necessarily get there initially. We thought originally that we were going to kind of introduce a mobile analytics style product, but realized we kind of needed to turn the playbook on its head and build something unique for the XR space. And really, we operate and market with this thesis around giving developers visibility on what's going on inside the headset, and also using the headset as a vehicle for data collection. So helping developers get a better understanding on what's going on inside that headset and how to build better content for it.
Fantastic. And then within that developer space, but then also within the consumer and enterprise space too, what pain points can be solved with your analytics-based services?
Yeah, for sure. So, on the pain point side, we work in a lot of different categories. So it's a little bit dependent on, the type of content that you're building. And so when we founded the company, we kind of went down this path of, games entertainment, thought the rocket ship was taking off. Obviously, if you're obviously familiar with the space. 2016, 2017, consumer market wasn't there. But what we did find was really great fit in enterprise. And so enterprise for us encompasses a few primary categories. The first one would be training and simulation. And today that's still our bread and butter, so simulated content, how can we measure human performance? How can we demonstrate, the value proposition that is associated with these training simulation apps? We give the tools for developers in those use cases, the ability to understand competency, the knowledge retention, those types of outcomes, leveraging these 3D analytics capabilities. We also work in the consumer research space, and so for us, there's quite a few different categories of consumer research, but I'll give you kind of the high level ones. AEC, so architecture, engineering, construction. A lot of folks in that category will use us for wayfinding and signage. So being able to understand, if I put somebody into a virtual space, if I put somebody into a digital twin, what's going to keep and draw their attention within that particular space. If I put signage up, if I build a space in a certain way, what path are users likely to follow as they engage within that world? Another good example would be product development, right? So we think about the automotive category as a good example of that. We've got the companies like Ford, GM, and others kind of innovating on their product design process, and using VR technology to kind of accelerate new design categories and also insights, and being able to understand how their buyers might interact within those particular environments, what draws their attention, what doesn't, and associating that behavior with kind of the qualitative information we know about that person. The final category, and you can find, kind of use cases on our website on this one, would really be the retail CPG category. And so in that category, we're thinking about planograms, store design, product packaging, interaction, those types of insights as well. So you can, that's kind of the consumer research category. We also support over 30 academic institutions today on their academic research, so data collection in that particular category. And finally, games and entertainment. So kind of a broad spectrum of use cases, but few kind of, I guess it's kind of like four main pillars.
Within those first three pillars, within enterprise, consumer behaviour, as well as academia, education, do these analytics also help build understanding and build the behaviour around using XR headsets? within those spaces as well, with helping drive adoption rates in the enterprise, examples like that?
Yeah, for sure. There's two different sides to the insight that we provide support for. So, in the earliest phases of building a new project, we can provide really great insight into UX and UI in terms of how people are interacting with the experience, what's drawing their attention, keeping their attention, how are they comprehending the content that you're putting in front of them. Then it kind of shifts into value proposition, right? So then you move from, are we delivering a good experience, into, is this creating good value for the organization? And so when we move into that category, it really depends on the use case you're after. So on the training and simulation side, we talk about completion, we talk about competency, we talk about retention of knowledge, maybe precision in work. So those are kind of the two different value propositions that you would have, and you can work on both sides of it. One of our key tools is called Scene Explorer, and this is literally an after-action review. It's a one-to-one replay of exactly what the user did inside the headset, and you can collect that on a completely distributed basis. So a lot of our customers will actually use this to debug specific sessions, especially when you start collecting like maybe a lot of sessions from testers or QA, or something along those lines. You can actually pull up the ones that maybe are the outliers. And see what went wrong. What can I learn from this particular, experience, and how I might be able to improve it.
Brilliant. And touching on that point of education, and then also the points of value that you bring up too, I'm interested in learning about how your clients can gain from their investments in XR analytics. Not just with the analytics services that you provide, but then I also imagine, as you say, it helps with other integrated technologies, say digital twins, for example. How do the analytics themselves bring a good investment and return on investment, but can it also boost the return on investment on other XR related technologies?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the name of the game, right? So we don't build any content at Cognitive3D. The experiences are really up to our customer, or whoever they're working with to build this stuff, right? Cognitive3D, we provide, effectively the measurement technology. And so the value proposition that the customer is looking for is typically something that our tools can measure for, but it is, the value really dependent on the type of experience they're building. So when you think about, if we shift all the way back to consumer research and automotive for a second, in a use case like that, you've got a really kind of legacy process that involves physical prototypes, potentially clay models, kind of an expensive and slow process to kind of get some new feedback. Obviously there's value proposition by using the technology, right? So being able to rapidly iterate on 3D models and get people into the headset. The next step beyond that is how do we get more precise measures, right? And we start thinking about maybe we can use eye tracking to be able to understand what are the key elements inside the cockpit that actually draw the user's attention. If I give an end user a task inside of the vehicle, find the volume controls or something along that. Show me if you can find the hazard signals. How does that KPI differ between the last model of the vehicle and the new one? So there's a lot of different types of value propositions that you can get by using, kind of quantitative, XR analytics to collect this data.
Brilliant. And I like how you bring up eye tracking data. I think that's something that's very much emerging at the moment. Same with hand tracking data too, and that whole technology space. It's really shaping the future of virtual reality. But then equally, with those eye tracking, hand tracking, and other related biometrics, how is this shaping the future of customer experience avenues, as well as enterprise training? I imagine it has an influence on the future applications and deployment of those future applications.
Yeah, for sure. Eye tracking is kind of an interesting, use case. We've been doing this for a really long time. We've been doing eye tracking since probably 2016, 2017. Started with the Fove. This was a 3DOF headset, which had really basic kind of input capabilities, and we've grown up from there. Eye tracking capabilities, really sophisticated, could be diagnostic in nature, in terms of the precision that could be available out of some of the different eye tracking technologies. But in terms of adoption in enterprise, not as much as you might think. On the training and simulation side, I think that there's really good use cases around high risk and, situational type of training modules. I'll give you just two examples. So, in aircraft training, in the cockpit or something like that, emergency situations, you might want to leverage eye tracking to be able to understand what was the process that the pilot took before they took action. Did they look at the safety checklist? Did they look at different sensors, different readouts before they started taking action? You might also be able to use that eye tracking data to determine things like cognitive load. Secondary, use case to that would be law enforcement, right? Being able to understand, did a police officer, or law enforcement officer, understand and comprehend situationally everything that was going on within that particular environment before they took action, maybe drew their weapon or whatever it might be. And so these are kind of high risk scenarios where there's a lot on the line. And using eye tracking gives you precision, right? And when we think about UX and UI and XR, I think that, we do gaze-based tracking as well, so that's without an eye tracker. And that really just kind of gives you the general direction of where a user's looking within space. Eye tracking is all about precision, right? So then the question is like, when do we need to have that conversation where we're going to get into the privacy elements of collecting eye tracking data? At what point does that become important? And so I think in those high risk training situations, those are good examples of that. But the majority of our training customers are really happy with the tools that we provide, even without eye tracking. So I think that that's kind of my view so far. On the consumer research side, we see more aggressive use of eye tracking because they're interested in the precision. They're interested in, how people are reading labels. They're interested in, text and other types of like fine elements within the scene. That's where the value is. But the important thing to mention about consumer research is that you're dealing with typically a closed set of testers. These are folks that have opted in. You're going through a path of collecting data from the environment, and we can collect really intricate insights from them. But most importantly, consent is involved as well. Academic research, eye track is almost always on, right? And these folks, obviously have academic rigor in terms of how they collect data, which is obviously really, really helpful from our perspective. Games entertainment, haven't really seen much at all. Our position just as a company, we don't collect eye tracking from the public, especially without consent. I have seen some game companies interested in like early UX and UI with their QA team, to kind of be able to understand like what maybe drawing and keeping attention on a more precise basis. But not a ton of that going on today.
Fantastic. All of this has been very insightful, and there's a lot really to unpack here. I think it's been a very good learning process for myself, really, as well as I imagine the readers. But just to turn the idea of the future of this technology back onto yourself a little bit more rather than your end users, what do you see the future of this XR-based analytics service? And do you see new data points perhaps emerging in the coming years? I imagine perhaps this time 20 years ago we wouldn't imagine hand and eye tracking technology being tracked in this way. It's such a changing space. And do you think there'll be new data points in the future? And what does the future look like for Cognitive3D as well?
Yeah, for sure. We've been spending a lot of time. Well, just a quick history lesson. So, over the last several years, for us at least, we've been really focused on building core technology. So building all the visualization tools, building the data pipeline, making it work, right? Like we're really building a new category, inventing a new data collection paradigm. And so that's been tough work. We've really scaled up the team over the last year or so. And now we're starting to think a little bit more about what are the predictive elements of what's going on within these applications? What are the insights that I can surface to developers to help them understand where they stand from a content perspective and where they could potentially improve. And so one of the theses that we've been working on is really this idea that we've been seeing that overall content quality is something that drives retention, session time, and a wide variety of other kind of inputs that developers are interested in. And so we started to break down what does quality mean in XR. And so we started off by building 3 metrics. The first one's called cognitive comfort, second one's called cognitive immersion, and the third one's cognitive performance. And so for each of the 3, we look into kind of all these different inputs that are going on in the headset to build effectively a barometer, right? So this is a 0 to 100 score, 50 being, average, right, within the experience. And we give you a ranking within your application of where you stand on each of those 3 measures. Then within the dashboard, you can dig into each of those measures to be able to see, a cognitive performance, for example. Do I have bad, battery dispersion? Is my FPS not so good? Where am I seeing failing frames within the scene? Where can I potentially optimize? So the idea here is to provide a developer kind of that barometer of where they stand, but also the tools to kind of uncover the ultimate insight on how they can improve their application.
Fantastic. And as I say, loads of great stuff to unpack there. Thank you so much for your time. But just for those watching, I wanted to ask, what's the best way for them to learn more and to learn more about all these use cases that you're bringing up?
Yeah, for sure. You can check us out on cognitive3d.com. This is a freemium product, so you are able to get up to 100,000 sessions with our baseline dashboard. So if you're interested in checking out on our application, cognitive3d.com, easy to get started.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That's been it for myself. If you want to get more XR news, you can subscribe to the XR Today news channel, follow our social pages, and join us on our website as well. I'm Rory Green from XR Today. Thank you very much for watching.